All right, guys, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about first what private money is, and then 3 key pieces that should be a part of your private money strategy or should be a part of every single note that you put together, not only for your business and making it the most safe product for your investors, but also just making it the most win-win approach. We've seen a big transition in our business once we started focusing on not only what we needed to make these deals successful, but how do we also help our lenders win in this process. If you're out there raising money from private lenders, you really have to change your mindset and think about it from the approach of how do I let them invest alongside me and create a scenario where they go out and win and tell their friends and referral partners about how good of an experience they had, how much money they made for very little effort on their part. And that's the whole point in the beginning of why they might invest with you in the first place. So with all that, let's jump in. All right, guys. So if you're unfamiliar, private money is essentially money from anyone who's not a bank or a traditional lender in the context that you would normally hear about them. These are folks like your friend that's a doctor, or your friend that has just sold their property and has a lot of cash sitting on the sidelines, your grandma or relative who has a retirement fund that they want to experiment a little bit with. They don't want it just all sitting in the stock market or all sitting in something ultra safe like bonds or another safe investment like that. These are folks who want to invest in real estate but don't have the time to go out and find off-market properties, learn how to fix and flip and all the things that have to go into that. They want to be exposed to the real estate industry, but not all the pain points that are typically associated. So where do you come along? And as the real estate investor is you go out and find the properties, you manage the teams that are going to rehab these, but you allow these lenders to come in, these friends and family come in on the deal with you, bring the capital side of the investment and let you just focus on the area of expertise that you've spent years building up. And in return, you guys both get a positive return on that investment and let everybody win in an ideal scenario. And speaking of ideal scenarios, I'm going to get to 3 pieces that you need to have as part of your private lending strategy if you are taking on money from outside investors. And if you are a private lender yourself and you are considering investing in real estate with a partner or an operator out in the field, these are 3 pieces you're going to want to make sure that you talk to them about and get their thoughts, and ideally make sure these are a part of the note when you make that investment. All right, so the first key factor for your private note is to make sure that your private lender is going to get a first position lien against the subject property that they're lending against. Now, if you're unfamiliar, a lien is just a right against that particular property. In a traditional case where someone goes out and buys a home with a 20% down payment, the bank is the first position lien holder against that property. Now, most people don't use these terms because it's just kind of known and happens behind the scenes. But why lien position matters is if there are multiple lenders, whoever's is in first is going to get paid off when that property is sold first. And the farther back you are, the higher likelihood that that property won't sell for enough to cover all the positions. That's why in our business, we only do one position, and that is the first position lien holder. So when you put your private lender in the first position lien, they have to sign off on the property before it's sold and make sure that they agree to the amount that they'll be getting in return for releasing their lien against the property. So making sure they're getting paid back in full and allowing that property to transition at the closing table. This is a non-negotiable for our business, and if you're out there private lending, I would highly recommend you insist that if you're lending against a property, you are in the first position lien holder, and you'll sign a mortgage and note associated with doing that before they're able to actually close on the property. All right, so the next item we're going to talk about is the personal guarantee. And so what this ultimately means is when you make this investment, you lend this money out against this subject property, and the person you're lending the money against, the person with the note against the property, is an LLC. You're actually saying, I don't care about the LLC, and if the LLC has money to repay me, I want a person behind that LLC to guarantee this note as well. So ultimately, you're putting the person behind the LLC's assets on the line to make sure that you're repaid in the instance that the property doesn't sell for enough to cover that first position lien. So for example, I give a copy of my balance sheet out to all of my lenders just so they can see that I have the assets available in case something, for God forbid, happened to this property and the insurance wasn't in place. And I've never had this scenario happen, but it just gives that warm and fuzzy peace of mind that, hey, if I'm lending against this property, if something happens to it, I know that there's a person behind that has the assets to make me whole if the worst case scenario were to happen. So this one's more just to make that lender feel good, be able to sleep at night, but it's very unlikely that this would actually need to get played out. Most real estate investors are out there buying properties so far below their retail value that the money they're lending against is more than sufficient to cover the property when it sells, especially when they're using their funds to rehab that property and make it worth even more. But at the end of the day, it's something very easy for the operator to sign saying, I guarantee this. I'm putting my name, my reputation on the line to stand behind this note in case the worst happens so that you feel good. You know that your money is safe while it's invested with you. All right, guys. And the last one here is something we've added after lots of feedback and conversations with our lenders about how do we make this a more streamlined process and an overall better win-win scenario for everyone involved, and that is guaranteeing 4 months of payments up front when we sign the deal. So if we look at this from the private lender's perspective, they want to put their money out into the market and earn a return on that. And they get a return based on a monthly interest-only payment. So their biggest concern going into this is you're going to buy it and turn around and sell it the next day. And then they've already gone into this, wired the money, went through the whole paperwork process to get 1 month's worth of interest payment. So what this does is just reassures them on the front end that, hey, if this guy does go ahead and turn around and sell this quickly for a profit, I'm still going to get at least 4 months worth of interest only payments so that I can at least project out what's my worst case return if he does turn this property too quickly. When we look back at the data, in most scenarios, we were running right at 4 months or just a little under anyway. So as the investor, you're really not out a whole lot more by paying that out. But what it does for the lender is give them so much value in terms of peace of mind that it was worth it for us to go ahead and underwrite this on the front side and be willing to guarantee that up front. All right, guys, so my last piece of advice is be able to simply and clearly explain to your private lenders how all of this works. This is not something you're taught in school or that most people are familiar with. So don't assume because you're in the real estate industry that everyone understands how this works. So for example's sake, I usually walk through a $100,000 example because the math is clean and most folks understand exactly how that could work. So our notes are mostly set up to be 10% interest only and 1 point up front. So 10% interest only. Every month, that's what that investor gets mailed a check for or direct deposit, ACH, however. And then up front, you get a $1,000 point because 1 point is 1% of the loan value. So that adjusts up or down based on how big the loan that investor's making. So you want to clearly be able to articulate, hey, you're going to make $833 per month and $1,000 up front. And since we guarantee that $833 for at least 4 months, plus your $1,000 point, at a minimum, you're going to make $4,332 on this investment. Now, if it goes longer than that, let's say it goes out to 5 months, you get this plus another $833. Another few pieces of information that private lenders typically get stuck on is, am I giving this money to you? And then how do I get this money back? And to answer the first one, no. You explain to them that they're going to wire money directly to a title company. You're never going to hand me money or wire anything to my personal account. Everything's done above board and it's recorded with your county title office and your recorder's office. So you're going to send it directly to a title company. They're going to record the note with the recorder's office. And then after the property's done, we're at the closing table selling it to an end buyer. The title company is going to then reach back out to you and say, hey, you have a note against this property for this amount. Can you sign this saying this is the amount you need to receive back in order for this property to sell? And when you do that, that title company is going to wire you money, that full amount back right into your account. So it takes me out of this being the middleman and any concerns you may have about a particular investor being responsible for that big sum of money. And it's going to be the title company who does this on a daily basis, has insurance systems and everything in place to do that. So that also does typically give private lenders a little more peace of mind knowing they're dealing with somebody in the real estate industry and who does this on a daily basis. And lastly, I cannot make this video without saying, for you real estate investors out there who are taking private money, you better damn well treat this money almost at a higher regard than you do for your own money. This is your reputation. This is everything's on the line. So don't go out and do skim deals and think that you can just invest it and scale with private money. You better be darn sure of your numbers. You better be confident in the outcome, and you better have a plan B approach if something does go wrong, that you can still make these investors whole, because I can promise you, you won't be in business long if you screw one person over. Most towns out there are very small, and it's very easy nowadays in the digital world to ruin someone's reputation if you don't do this appropriately. So with that due diligence aside, just know there often is very little risk when you keep these three pieces at play, as long as you're dealing with an experienced real estate operator. And so do your research, do your homework, and make sure you're dealing with an honest and reputable investor for all you lenders out there as well. But guys, if you got any value out of this video, drop a like, subscribe, or share it with someone else who may consider lending or might be considering taking on investors, to see if that might be interesting to you. And also, if you're on the fence and considering whether or not you might be interested in lending private money out to an experienced real estate operator, reach out to me. I'd love to chat with you about how we might incorporate you into our private money pipeline and see if you might be interested in taking on a deal or two if the situation makes sense for everyone involved. With that, guys, I'm Tyler Wayrung, and we'll catch you next time.